Hi everyone, back to do part 3 of presentation in Lost in Time by RJ Hampson. And this is the page that I'm working on. I have found my sharpener that went missing the other day that I couldn't find, that I thought I would just share with you. This is the missing one, Derwent. It's a crankshaft one. It's very good. It creates a nice long point, which is really good, but it's quite rough on the pencil, so it leaves these indentations in there where the teeth grab onto the pencil. So that's the only problem with it. I haven't been game to use it on my expensive polychromos or Prismacolor pencils, but my cheaper ones, it's okay if they get banged up. I know that's really silly thinking, but it's the way I think. So I've got this far and I got a bit stuck here with this thing. I've been having a little think about it while I was not recording. So let me just get sorted. So I feel like doing that dark along those edges wasn't really a great move. So I'm going to try and lighten some of this off. This is a battery operated eraser. It's a very cheap one. It's not a great one, but it does the job eventually. So I'm going to lighten that back off a bit. I think it's okay to be dark around on this part of the machine. And I got a little bit confused, I think, the other day that there's actually a string that is attaching the dome shape here to these things coming off of the chair. So I think I got a little bit distracted by that with the colouring as well. So I'm having a little rethink about how to go about doing this. And I also think that this bit here perhaps shouldn't have been red, because that's a continuation of this bit here. So I was a bit remiss in colouring that one red, I think. So alright, where's my little brush? Let's get rid of all those eraser bits, pencil bits. So let's keep going with the this is the bronze yellow, and I'm just going to take that down a little bit further, and then I'm going to maybe leave quite a bit of a highlight there. In fact, if I could take some more of that off. Doesn't matter if there's a bit of colour there still, but I think I just want to start again here with this. So let's get that out of the way. So let's see if I can just slowly build that colour back up, because it has such a long fine point. It's no point pressing hard with that, or it is just going to snap. And I'm just going to blend that colour down, and I think that's really the best that I can hope to do with this. Without, you know, putting too much thought into it and really studying how brass looks. So we'll just treat those lines as if they're actually not there, because I don't think it's really going to have an impact on how it ends up looking. Oh, there you go, there goes a point on that one. So we'll just try and blend a little bit of that green in. Gee, I'm not with it today, am I? Going all over the place. And this is where it becomes useful to learn not to press too hard, because then you can erase these little things that go wrong. I also was using the antique brass as well along the darker areas, so we'll use that to blend it all in together as well. Because I don't actually want it looking green, although brass does get a bit of a green tinge to it sometimes. Back to the bronze yellow. So I started this colouring yesterday, which was Monday my time, and it's now Tuesday, and it is actually the anniversary or birthday of the channel today. And I had thought about going out and buying something to treat myself, or order something from Amazon off of my wish list, and I sat and really thought about it. And there's not an awful lot that I actually need. I'm waiting on a few books that have been pre-ordered to become available. So I'm still waiting on the Dark Fairy Tales by Kirby Rosanes. And looking forward to that. It says that the release date is the 1st of April for Amazon Australia, but as some other books have shown me, that sometimes doesn't mean absolutely anything, and the date can get pushed right out. That's what happened with the Camilla Derrico book. So I'm waiting on that. I've also got another couple of pre-orders done for, let me think. So later in the year, Camilla Derrico is bringing out one called Catitude, which sounds really interesting. So I have put in a pre-order for that. And if a flip comes available before the release date and I don't like it, I will just cancel that. That's the thing here in Australia, is that we are often way behind when it comes to release dates for new books. So the flip throughs start to become available on YouTube, like the ones for Kirby. I've been only looking at the first couple of pages and then switching off, because I want to have a surprise when the book comes. And for those first couple of pages, I've got a fair idea that, you know, it's still very much Kirby style that I like. So I am going ahead and buying that one. There is a Maria, is it Trolle? I'm not sure how to pronounce that correctly, but Maria's got a book coming that's in English, and it's not going to be released until, I think it's July. I think it's the latest one about fairy tales, but it's the English version. And Jill Barklam has got another Brambley Hedge book, which is not Christmas related, and that's not being released until June or July here as well. So I've got a pre-order in for that. So I've got a few books coming, and I've actually got a few books in the last week that are kind of early birthday presents, so I'll share those on another video maybe. So I think that's enough. Like, I don't really need any more. So when I really thought about it, the only thing that I might buy is, looking at how short some of these Crayolas are getting, I might actually buy a replacement set of the 100 Crayolas, but that's about it. I really don't need anything else. I've got plenty of pencil sets that aren't even being used, so, you know, really I just don't need them. Want and need is two different things. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just cleaning off the nib of this colourless blender, and I'm going to just soak the nib in a little bit of solvent, and I'm going to try using a bit of solvent on here and see how this ends up looking. And it's probably not going to look anything like brass, which is what I envisaged, but that's okay. I think the colour is okay anyway. It's something different to the rest of the picture, and I will bring some of those colours in around the composition and it will do. And I'm just going to smooth that out on there. I think that will do. So I'm just going to put the lid back on that solvent. Although it says low toxic, you do still need to be well ventilated, and it's ideal not to leave the lid open. You know, just because it doesn't have a smell doesn't mean that there isn't giving off any sort of toxic fumes. And it says low toxic, but it is still a solvent. Okay, so that will do, and I think what I'm, when I was looking at it, I might actually, for the purposes of this page, match similar to what I've done here, because it will work in with what I've got around the page. So we'll go for, see if we can get more of an aquamarine blue. It won't be the exact colour in this set, of course, because that was polychromos, but this is green blue. So what I'll do is, how did I tackle that? Okay, so I'll do it similar to that just for this one. I don't know if I will do that again. You know, as I've said before, I'm not pre-planning or thinking ahead what I'm doing. It's all very much spur of the moment. So my thinking is that maybe Mr Fogherty took inspiration from the light fitting, but this isn't actually a light fitting, because it would just be an enormous light fitting if it was. Or these critters really are minuscule, so you know, it doesn't really have to flow on that perfectly, I guess. If I have a bit of trouble getting words out today, I'm rather tired. I didn't sleep very much at all last night. And I find that the days where I haven't slept well, I can have a bit of trouble getting my words out and I get a bit muddled. So bear with me. And I think in part 2, I had real trouble thinking of the word continuity. And I don't know why. I think it's a bit of a reflection on getting older, that sometimes our minds are so full of things that we don't concentrate all that well and get a bit muddled with our words sometimes. Well, that's my excuse anyway. So that's just called green blue, but it's quite nice and it's very similar to what I had on the other page anyway, so that's good. And we'll put a little bit of red in there like is on the other page as well. around the edges I did all sorts of different colours, but I'm not sure if I will do that on this one. So I've decided that I will make this grey as well, just because I don't really want to start introducing too many different colours into this late stage. It will be more a case of working on the tone a little bit more and getting some contrast going. And I may actually use, no, I won't do that because that will be no variation with that. This is why really you should plan your pages out to a certain degree ahead of time, because then you don't waste as much time humming and hawing like I'm doing here. So I've gone back to the jade green, which is what we used on Mr Fogherty. And I might just turn my book to make this a lot easier. A little bit darker to each side so that it implies that there's not so much light, and a bit more light in that bit. Although whether this was glass or metal remains to be seen, doesn't it? It could just be coloured metal. And I think we'll use the black around the edge here. Just going to go lightly to start with, because I've got this really big sharp point on here, if you can see that. And you can see, even with really light pressure with the black, I'm still getting a reasonable payout with the pigment with these Crayola. Now granted, I have got the Australian Amazon printed book, so if you're in the US or the UK or somewhere in Europe, your printed copy may not be as kind to Crayola pencils as this particular paper is. But to be honest, I don't feel like I'm working all that much harder than I did with the Polychromos. And hopefully as we're going on, you can see that the results are not too shabby either. Now, I'm not encouraging anybody to go and buy Crayola if they don't already have them. But what I am encouraging you to do is, if you do have your Crayola pencils already and you don't use them because you've never been able to come to terms with them, I'm just suggesting that perhaps have another go and start working with light layers and building your colour up, or even investing in a sharpener that will give you a really sharp point like this, because as you can see, you know, the sharp point can help to burnish and get some nice colour, you know, rich colour going. I'm just going to do that little bit there. I'm not even pressing hard yet. It's only sort of medium pressure that I'm putting on here, if that. And you can see that coming back now with that firm point. It's actually helped to burnishing the colour. And I've got hardly any white spots showing through that at all. And of course, you know, different pencils, different colours. You know, the black will behave differently to the red, will behave differently to the green, and so on. It all depends on the pigments in the colours. But I think you'll agree that that's pretty impressive coverage. And I haven't actually had to work too hard for it. Okay, making sure that I'm still on screen properly. I really don't know what background to put on here either. I just am at a bit of a loss at the moment. Don't want to use a colour that's going to make anything blend into these guys either. I did think about maybe some sort of a glow. I'm just going to do that little lever there that I've missed. The handle section. So I'm going around the edges in the black, and I'm just going to leave a bit of a light highlight just to help sort of portray that it is metal. So I'll keep going back with the grey and building up this until I can work out what on earth I'm going to do with the bit that I'm avoiding. And I also use the grey here, so I need a little bit more darker grey, I think. Whoops, there we go, there goes a point. So we'll make this look like it's some sort of grungy metal tank. So I felt like it was joy enough to just colour a page that I really enjoy the book and the artist as my celebration for this auspicious day. I really did not think a year ahead when I started with the first couple of videos. Very nervously started, I might add. I wasn't sure that too many people would be interested to listen. I knew a few of my Instagram friends might watch and listen because they had asked me, you know, how I was doing certain effects and certain things in my books. So I knew that they would be a little bit interested to see how I did it, but yeah, quite surprised really that a year later I'm still going. Alright, let's bite the bullet soon because this is just dragging on and you're going to get bored of listening to me pondering and thinking out loud. I think I might just do, for one of these curly hoses here, I might do some red on there just because too much grey is a little bit too drab. So make it look like it's some sort of rubber hose. Rather than a metal pipe. I wonder if you're all shouting at me, get on with it, make a decision and just do it. Let's have a think. This is called Cadet Blue, so I'm just going to do a bit of a bluish shadow under here. And feather that out. So mole's glass would be see-through, so you need to put a little bit of colour there just to indicate that, and then I just usually leave that outside bit that Russell has indicated there as the glass. I just leave that white. That's usually how I address things like glasses, as in drinking glasses, and same here with this one for the mouse. Like, you don't have to overthink everything. And it's just a bit of cross hatching, build that colour up, because it's a very light pencil. Like, there's not a lot of pigment coming out of this one, so it's very subtle. And there's little, it looks like little stones, so it looks like that could be outside even. So maybe we could go for a sandy looking, instead of brown. We do have a colour here called tan. It's very orangey. I don't know that that's great. So we might tone it down with something here that we've already got. And I'll blend that in with that blue. So I might use the, let's have a look, medium deep golden. Blend in with that a little bit, especially in these areas where Russell's indicated that there could be some shadow. And I'm going over those little circles. So I don't have any logic just to tell you where I'm taking this colour to and stopping. It's just where it feels like it might be a you know, natural pleasing place to stop, but I'm going to gradually peter that out and have it quite sketchy in the way that it ends. I don't want it to be too perfect. And let's go with more of a darker brown now. So we'll use the dark brown, and I've sharpened this and it's got a very fine point on it now, so I'm just going to be careful to go lightly and not break that. And I'm going into all these areas where Russell's done lines that suggest some sort of shadow around the feet. A little bit darker there, and then just taper that out a little bit as well. And I'd take that a little bit further on the table legs to just do a little bit extra there as well. So again, you know, Russell's done that for a guide for us, but he hasn't done all of the thinking for us. We still have to just work out whether that's enough of a shadow to make those figures look like they're grounded and they're not floating in the air. There we go. I knew it would happen eventually. I am quite heavy-handed, even though I try really hard not to be. So I'm not filling all those circles in. Some I have, some I haven't. Just random. And I'm going to go along that edge there to suggest more of a shadow from the bottom of the time machine. And then let's just take the tan up a little bit higher and start blending it with that blue. Not sure what would be going on in the background there just yet. Maybe something from here. These are the sorts of things I just sort of fudge it a bit until I feel like I've achieved something that's acceptable. Let's go back to not that one. Let's go back to the, no, not that one. Ah, here it is up here. Medium golden. It's not really very exciting viewing when you're watching this sort of thing. These sorts of expanses are a little bit boring, you know, but you can't really speed it up. You need to just sort of work through it, especially with pencil. If you're working with watercolours or water-based marker, it would be really easy. Put some colour down and then use the water to blend it out, and it would be, you know, much more simple. But I haven't got that, of course, so let's go back. Where did I do with that cadet blue? There it is. I'm going to add some of that in down here now. So I just try not to do like a straight line across. I try to stagger it a little bit, like a zigzag, and stagger it and just sort of keep blending it to a point where it feels like it's, you know, pleasant to me to look at it. But I don't do it in bands of colour. I try to stagger it like a zigzag sort of staggering of the colour, if that makes any sort of sense. I had thought about maybe doing a solid background with an acrylic marker maybe. I'm not sure how to treat this bit under here because we can't see Mr Fogherty's feet or legs, so I'm not sure what to do with that. So maybe the background we might do blue, like it's outside. I was thinking inside to start with because of the setup here, but no, maybe it is outside. So I might actually do a sky in the background. That took a while to come around to that thinking, didn't it? So that one is powder blue, but that looks a little bit too lilac. It's a little too bright. I think I might go for this one. It's Absolute Zero. This came in a set that was called Neon. I remember now, it didn't come in the original 100 set. So there was a small set of neon colours that came on their own. So again, not pressing too hard at this stage. We might lighten that right down as it gets to the horizon. Now, generally with a sky, especially a sky like this, if I was going to do any sort of lines or texture in it, I would tend to go horizontal in line with the horizon. If I was using a marker and I was going to work with any streaking that naturally occurs with marker, I would try to go horizontal. With coloured pencils, it's not so important, I guess, because we can blend it to a very solid colour. But if you think that you're not going to be able to blend it all completely and you're going to have some sort of lines or streaks, go in the direction so that it's parallel with the horizon and not that way. And it looks a little bit more natural on the eye. But I'm going to try and blend this out, and if I can't blend it out, I'll use some solvent on it. But I'm going to try and keep working at it with the pencils so that I get a reasonably smooth blend. So I want it to be lighter down the bottom. See, I'm thinking maybe there would be ground behind there. rather than sky. So I'm treating this as a scene, but you could put a coloured background behind there if you wanted. You don't have to make it look like it's an outdoor scene. So starting to press a little bit harder now. And because I want this quite dark up here, I'm going to go this way to help blend those white spots in. So what I find with these neon pencils is the lead in the neon ones does seem to be rather quite a bit harder than the regular pencils as well. So you do have to work a bit harder to get the colour out of these ones. So I don't have a sharp point on this pencil tip. It has actually got a bit of a blunt end to it. So it is helping to burnish in some of those lines that I had going from that way. And this one is called Blue Bolt. I'm just going to do a little bit of darker right at the top there. Not too far down, and then come back to the absolute zero. And I'm pressing harder now. And that's actually helping to burnish and blend that darker blue right down. And you can hear that sort of catching on the paper there. And with this blue, I might just go over these bits here. So I generally just keep working at it like this until I get that level of colour where I want it, and I get rid of all the lines. So I'm just having a look through the viewfinder to see how that looks for you guys. So maybe just a little bit of a tidy up down here. And that still is confusing me how to do this bit, to be honest. I think we'll just do that combination that we've got going on down here. So a bit of tan. And then we'll have the cadet blue again. I'll do that a little bit randomly as well. And a little bit with the medium deep golden. So all what we've used down here. And even a little bit of the dark brown. And follow it through so that, you know, there's a bit of continuity going through there in the background as well. And again, going from side to side, so it's horizontal rather than coming vertical that way. So these are all just ideas. If you would do something differently yourself, you know, you have a different way of doing it that you like a little bit better, then don't fix what ain't broke. Just go with what you're happy with. So just going for a little bit of darker stuff behind these items here so they come forward a little bit. And this is where sometimes when you're doing these random bits of colour, you suddenly start getting shapes that start to make a little bit more sense, and then you can keep working at it. And then you start working out where, okay, this has needs a little bit more contrast now. And again, this is where we could use a little bit of solvent to help blend some of that in. Don't get rid of all of the texture, because it will cease to look like it's you know, sitting outside somewhere. Don't necessarily want it to start looking like they're on carpet. And also just running that blender over sometimes gives you an opportunity to come back in with the pencil. This is the medium deep golden again, and layer up a little bit of extra pencil where you need it. And it takes a bit of time to do some of this stuff, and this is why I don't generally like doing backgrounds and overly great deal, because I'd rather be colouring things rather than this randomness. But it can make or break your picture at the end, whether you've taken the time to do some of this stuff. And it can get, you know, it's a bit boring and a little bit frustrating at times doing it, but you know that it just takes your picture to the next level if you do. So this dark brown I'm going to do for his walking stick here. I think that's what it is he's got tucked under his arm. And I'm going to really start to darken up some of these areas that would be more solid. Anywhere where you feel like you need to start pushing it back. And this is where I start to really jump around now as I darken a little bit here, so then I feel like I need to go there, and you know, that's how I get that little bit darker. Going to use the taupe very lightly to just put a bit of colour inside the ears of those mouses or mice, and I'm going to use the red violet to do that band on the mouse's hat, just tidy up that little bow there. And I was going to leave these white, but that would look a bit stark, so I'm just going to go around the edges with the Timber Wolf, which is the light grey, and just go around the edges so that at least there's some colour on those bits. And then I'm going to get some silver gel pen. I've actually got Sakura Jelly Roll here, but you can use whatever gel pen that works best for you. And I'm just going to go around some of the areas where we've used grey, but just make it a little bit more shiny so it looks a bit more like chrome. And it just picks the light up. You know, when you're looking at it in person, it just reflects the light and gives it a bit of a shine. So I'm going to go around his goggles. I'm also going to do the end of the cane or walking stick, whatever it is there, and the tip. I'm also going to do some of these fittings. And I'm not going to do all of them, but just some of these screws or rivets. Maybe a little bit on the lights. Just so that there's a little bit of shine coming off of the page when I'm looking at it. And again, with just some of these fittings that might be shinier than others. You know how you get some metals that are a lot more reflective and chrome-like, and you've got other ones that are dirty and grungier like steel. That little lever across there, I'm going to turn that into a black lever as well. Just leave a white highlight in the centre of it. And then while I've got the black, I'm just going to do a few bits of black in the really deepest, darkest shadows. I'm going to darken up with the black just for that contrast, because there's a lot going on in this picture. Not sure what's going on behind there. So we'll do that. When I'm not sure of something, I'll quite often use a colour like the grey, because it's dark enough that it will help this beak of the swan recede, but it's none of those surrounding colours, so it's helping, you know, it's a non-colour, if that makes sense. We could even do that down here where we need to just make sure that the swan, I'm calling him a swan because I don't know what he is. We want him to come forward from the background a little bit. So a little bit of grey over the top of all that tan just helps to knock that back and bring him forward, hopefully. That's the goal. Same there behind the nose or snout of mole. It's not so different from the background that it stands out, but it's just helping to send the background back and bring the figures forward a little bit. And that's really what I do when I'm doing these sort of ground areas, is that you know, I just keep adding all the colours that are already here and building it up. Oh, there goes my lid. Okay, so now we've got just a border to go. And I think I might make that a deep red border. So I'm going to go with the maroon. Lighten it off towards the middle there, so that we get a bit of variation there. Gosh, all these pencils are in the way now. So I'm just going to grab the Prismacolor white and do a little bit of a highlight there where it overlaps itself. And then let's go back to the red violet and just do that a little bit harder and deeper. Colour where you know, things are behind or okay, how's that looking? Pretty good. And I want a little bit of gold down here. There's my little brush again. Trying not to smudge pencil everywhere. So I'll grab the gold and I want to do some gold. This again is a Sakura jelly roll, but any gold that you've got. I quite like the gold and silver in the jelly roll. I find that they work really nicely. So a bit of gold on there, and I'm going to do a bit of gold just in the buttons, or maybe it's some sort of cuff link, and the same for mole. And on the mouse, on the baton there, and on his sleeve. I'm going to leave the stripe white down there. We'll do gold on the buttons of the swan. I'm going to leave that bird white, but he does have an eye, so I'm just going to do that dark. And I think maybe a little bit of gold just on the controls here. Because that's like, look here, you know, this is where it all happens. And where's that silver? I might put a little bit of silver just on the levers. And that's the bronze yellow, just do a little bit there. Just blend that in a little bit more. So where I use the solvent and it's dry now, I'm just coming back and making sure that all of that looks a little bit more blended as I want it to be. And I think that's pretty close to being done. I might actually put a little bit of the maroon around the edge of his fancy shirt that's sticking up here. That he's got like a nice trim on the collar of his shirt. Just using the antique brass to just knock back the brightness of that white a little bit. Because I don't have a cream or anything like. Oh, I do have a cream. Is that? No, it's called Unmellow Yellow. It might be a little bit too. Yeah, a little bit too yellow. So I think I might call that quits for the video. I might potentially, you know, do a bit more building up of the colour on the sky and just go around little areas like this and fill in where I've been a little bit clumsy, because I'm trying to rush it along and not, you know, keep you for too long. I am conscious that there's quite a few parts here. But I would just keep doing that and working at it until I've got all the little nooks and crannies all sort of coloured. But I think I might leave that there. So I'll just show you closely how the different areas are starting to look. So I'd leave the majority of the swan white. I wouldn't actually put any colour on him. I'm going to leave all their shirts, their collars white. If I've got any pencil over there, I'll use the eraser to just, you know, come and take those little bits back off. I'm quite happy with the way the light on the chair and everything is sitting there, so I don't think I will be fiddling with that too much. It might just be a few edges on the metal. And a bit of tidying up, so you can see how textured I've left the floor area down here. And I've followed that through to try and match it behind there. So thank you for joining me with this one. If you have Crayola pencils, then let me know if you are going to maybe look at them a little bit differently and give them another go, because I think they are underrated. To me, that's quite a striking image, and it's quite saturated, and it just needed that little bit of extra layering, but it is possible to do it. So thank you for joining me with this particular page. Our next page is going to be Test Drive. Mr Fogherty takes the time machine for its first journey, so that's what we will be doing next. And just a little recap that done the title page there. And that was Alcohol Marker, Fly Envious Time, and this one was the Polychromos, Inspiration, and then we've just completed Presentation. So let me know what you think of that one, and whether you would have done anything really differently if it's one that you're going to tackle. And I appreciate you being with me again, and I will see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye now.